So, what is life? What is purpose? Why are we here? But specifically, why are you here? What is the reason that you're watching this episode right now, or what is the reason that you came across this clip, or whatever that looks like in your life? Most people, I feel like, can't answer this in most of their lifetime, right? Like, what is my purpose? Like, why am I here? What does life mean? What is all of this for if it's not for if it's for nothing? A lot of people believe that it is for nothing, that, you live and that you die and that's the end. I personally believe that we live so that we can be in community together, we can be in relationships together. And through our relationships and through our community and through our faith, we can live again together in a perfect unity outside of this. It's almost like the test before the graduation. So I thought maybe we would kind of get a little deep in this podcast and go through some things, some uncomfortable things, and talk about, it's really my personal opinion, my personal beliefs. Hopefully it's some other people's as well that can connect with this. And maybe if it's not yours, maybe hearing some of the things that we talk about will lead you in a different direction, or maybe guide you to try to do more or be more or find that purpose. So what if the world was just raw, if it was just real, if we weren't hiding behind our stories, or hiding behind our traumas, or hiding it from people, right? What if our mess was our message in every day and every way, and we weren't just keeping the things that have happened for us to ourselves? How would that look? How would the relationship with your wife look? How would the relationship with your kids or your friends or your employees look if they were able to see a side of you that most people try to hide, right? The things that you don't want people to know, the fears, the worries. I actually, this just popped in my head. I actually had a conversation with some of my people in the office this week, and we were talking about how I just got back from vacation, and we went to Pensacola to a place called Portofino Island, and it was amazing. Had a bunch of us there, and we rented a pontoon boat and took it out in the bay. And my wife's not a fan of going out on boats outside of ours at the lake, but she went, the kids went, she was nervous. I'd never driven a boat anywhere outside of a lake here in Kentucky. So we rented this boat, and they told us about this place called Sand Island down the way. It was probably from the hotel we were staying in. It was probably a 40-minute ride. And so we took off in the bay. It had been storming like 2 days, the first 2 days that we were there. So the bay was even kind of choppy, but it was almost like a busy weekend at the lake. So not a huge deal. There's 12 of us on the boat, maxed out, right? It's got a little 115 on the back of it, and we're cruising along. And there's naval bases and stuff here in this bay, and it's just a really cool lot of like scenery all the way around. And as we're driving, we're hitting the chops, and I'm getting comfortable. And I have a pontoon here, so like I'm used to driving them, or tritoon, whatever you want to call it. I'm used to driving them, so I'm cruising around, and everything seems fine. But to get to where we have to go through like the inlet that or the outlet, I guess, if you're on this side, that goes out into the ocean, into the Gulf of America. So as we're cruising through there, again, it had been raining. The water had been double red flags since we'd gotten there. Waves were crazy, undercurrent, the full shebang. So as we're getting closer to it, we get more of that like ocean feel, right? Where it's more swells than it is like wakes. And, I'm maxed out trying to drive the boat and steer the ship, if you will, to get to where we're wanting to go, because they say it's beautiful. You got to take the kids there. You can bank on this little sand island out in the middle of the bay, and it's where they actually dredge the canals and stuff and pump sand out onto this little island so that the naval ships and the big boats can get through there without dragging the bottom. So white sand, beautiful. I got, the radio on, trying to keep everybody like, calm, bunch of kids, a bunch of adults. And we start getting to these swells. And I've never been in a boat on the ocean. I've definitely never driven a boat in any kind of, water like that. And I'm starting to get nervous, gripping the steering wheel a little bit tighter, and I can feel my anxiety and stuff rising. And I'm seeing all the people on the boat. And so I'm like, all right. And I mean, I'm driving like, like something you'd see in a movie. And it's funny because in probably a regular boat or a bigger boat, like there probably would have been nothing to go through. But in that, it was pretty intense for a few minutes. And in my head the whole time, like I'm trying to freak out. I'm trying to get super nervous. And, with that comes mistakes and also my anxiety can flow onto somebody else that maybe already is worried. And so I'm like, okay, you have to stay calm. You have to, keep communicating, keep talking. Internally, I'm freaking out a little bit. So we make it through, and, it's at some points it looks like all I can see is the sky for a second, and then all I can see is water for a second, And again, it wasn't, probably wasn't nearly as bad. If you were standing on the bank watching us, it probably looked like we were doing this, but it felt like we were doing this. And the whole time I kept thinking, like, man, if the front of this boat, if I hit this wrong, the front of this boat's going to go under the water. I've seen it on videos. Everybody's seen, the pontoons that hit the wake wrong or whatever, and it just kind of, they don't sink or go under or anything like that, but the front of the boat just dips in. And if that happens, everybody on this boat's going to be freaked out. We're going to be turning it around, and we're going to be going back. I have no doubt. Fear is going to take over. Probably even for me, I may even just pull over close and say, come get it. I don't know. So we keep going, get through it all. Finally, the waters just get choppy again, and the swells are gone. We get past the inlet, and I'm like, thank God. So we cruise around, we bank in Sand Island, and it was amazing. We got all kinds of really cool pictures. It almost felt like we were on the moon or something at some point, like when you walk into the middle of it, and all there is like these mounds, hills and valleys and dips of just white sand everywhere. That's all you can see. And it was really cool. And then you can go out and be like, right on the edge of the ocean. There was like rock formations we was taking family pictures and stuff on. And it was so worth it. I kept saying, like, I'm so glad that we did this. I'm so glad that we did this. So we get back, and I'm telling, some of the guys at the office about it. And I'm like, it reminded me much of business and much of life. While I'm out there, navigating these waters and steering and everything else, I'm trying not to freak out. But like, I've never done this. I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. However, if I let that show, if I let that bleed out of me and into someone else, and then they start freaking out, they could start, oh, watch this, watch that, do this. And then everybody starts communicating and trying to steer the ship, and errors could happen, right? Because now I'm trying to listen to everybody else instead of trusting myself. And it was one of those things where it was like, okay, I've got to stay cool, calm, collective. I can't let people know that I really don't know what I'm doing in this moment. I need to just lock in and get this done. And I said, it's a whole lot like running the business. It's a whole lot like growing the business. I'm the captain of that ship, and all of the people that work with me, they're all on this ship with me, right? And there's times where I hit giant swells. I don't know if you've seen the Wolf of Wall Street, but the houseboat that they take out right during the storm, there's times that's what it feels like our ship is in. But my job is to be calm and collective and not show fear. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? We've spoke about this. Fear does exist, but does it control you? And I'm really good at steering the ship and making everybody feel like that everything's under control. There's plenty of life rafts. There's life jackets. I've got plenty of food. I've got plenty of this. I got all the things that we need, right? Everything that we need, that even if something does go south, we've got what we need to correct the ship. So I told him, I said, it's very important that even when I'm concerned, I don't show it, right? I come in and I show up the same way that I always do. I make sure that if I'm going in and saying, good morning, ladies, or good morning, guys, like that doesn't stop even when I'm concerned or I'm freaking out or it's hard or the swells are big or it's storming or whatever. But in that, I also realized just over the last couple of days, even right now, it's also good to talk about, right? Like in the moment, keep your shit together, steer the ship, make sure everybody feels safe, get to the destination. But after you get there, talk about it. Talk about it with your family or your people or the people that are trusting you, the people that are on the boat with you, trusting you to steer the ship that they've boarded. And tell them, like, hey, look, in those moments, I was unsure, right? I was unsure, but I wouldn't allow myself to believe that something bad was going to happen. I was just freaking out a little bit, but I didn't want that to bleed onto you. So we had that conversation. It was actually me and Ethan up at the office. We had that conversation. I said, look, my job is to make sure you guys don't see me being nervous while I'm steering us to the next venture or journey or expansion. But I am also worried in these moments. I'm worried. Most days, on the external, I could seem like I've got it all together, but internally, we all have things, right? We all have guilt or regret or fear or happiness, sadness. So I did a whole lot of thinking. I just got back from Texas on Sunday. We went on family vacation the week before last. I came home for 2 days, got back on a plane, went to Texas. I had another aha moment where, I've sent every one of the male employees that work with us through that Rise Up Kings experience that I've spoke about over the last couple of years. And, you just go, I'll take care of the plane, the hotel, like everything. I just want you to experience this. So I've sent pretty much all of them through at this point. And when my wife was going through one of the Rise Up Queens events, I was in a hotel. I travel with her because she hates traveling alone. And I'm bored out of my mind sitting in a hotel room. And it kind of hit me that, hey, you've made a mistake here. You didn't think about the better half of our world, the women in your life. And so I instantly was like, man, I never even thought about sending the same message out to them that I did all of the guys. But maybe they would like to go through something like this. So got on the computer right away, sent a message. It was like, hey, I screwed up. I'm so sorry it's taken this long for me to realize, but I would love to send all of you that want to go on the same, venture that all the field managers and managers in the office and stuff have been through. If you're interested. So instantly, like, people started texting me like, I'd love to go. I'd love to go. I'd love to go. And I'm like, wow, what an idiot, Tim. Like, how did it take you a year and a half to recognize this? But regardless, I recognized it. So that's a plus. So they all went down there. And the gratification of it, right? So like talking to them and hearing about their experiences and journeys made me so happy. And then there's a RuckCon event that they have there, which is basically like all the people that's graduated through the events can come back to this like conference style thing where they've got guest speakers. And they had some speakers. What I really love about this is for me, it's what faith is supposed to be like, right? It's beautiful. The stories are horrendous. The people that you're going with, man, some of the stuff that they tell us and that they've been through, and even, my story that I opened up about, and just hearing about all of the bad and the fear and the trauma in people's lives that have happened. And then there's hundreds of us all in this one place, and we're all looking for the same thing. And I think in the world, there's millions and millions of us that are all on the same planet, and we're all looking for the same thing. I think different people take different ways trying to get there. But what I've seen that was very, very impactful happened to me in Texas, which is why I'm such an advocate for this, right? And I think it represents who and what I am in my life. So they talk about the stuff that people usually hide, right? Like they talk about like, hey, this happened to me as a child, and I was taken advantage of by an adult or whatever, or my mom and dad did this, or my dad was abusive, or my mom was abusive, and just all of these crazy stories that aren't fun. They're not fun to talk about, right? It's not something you want to go out with your buddies and like talk about some of the crazy stuff that's happened to them. And it's just like, man, this is sad. It's sad that this happens to so many people, and so many people have been through things. But in that, it allowed me to also go, things have happened for me as well in my life, right? Like from a young age, a whole lot of trauma has happened in and around our lives. And it allowed me to start speaking about that. And all of a sudden, there's a giant group of us all talking about all of this stuff. And then through prayer and through learning, we're able to work through some of it. So I jot down all kinds of like little thoughts and ideas that came to my mind before we turned the cameras on. And, one of them is that the boy drives the man, right? Like most cases, we're developed in a version of who we're going to be as an adult by 12 years old, right? So all of the stuff that happens to you or for you from birth until 12 really develops a whole lot. And one thing I've learned, especially the more I dive into like the psychology of, how our minds work and how our emotions work and all of this, is that a lot of the times I'm sitting here, or I'm on the boat, or I'm at work, or I'm dealing with my kids, or a stressful situation. Like when those things kick in, it's not me being a almost 40-year-old man in that moment. It's what everybody used to call Little Timmy, right? That was my name growing up. He's steering my ship. And he's terrified, and he doesn't know that he's not supposed to tell me that he's scared and tell me that this is bad or freak out. And through that, the adult version of me starts feeling those emotions. It starts feeling these things that are coming out and happening. And most of that was developed by the time I was 12 years old, right? So like, how do I talk to women, or how do I handle my children, or how do I handle a job? Or, we've seen that. Like we've seen that through the adults and the people that we had in our lives growing up. The actions that they did, not even the words. My wife and I had a conversation the other day. I was like, hey, if we want our kids to be a certain way, we can't just tell them they need to be that way. Like we need to be that way. If we want to have them get up early when they grow up and have a good morning routine, and we want them to understand how to appreciate things and take care of things, like we have to show them that. We can't just be like, hey, you guys should get up early and have a good morning routine, because they're going to go, okay. And then they're never going to do it, because they watch what we do more than they listen to what we say. So digging into all of that, the more I lean into it and the more that I talk to other people, the more connected I feel through discussing hard things or uncomfortable things. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and we were actually talking about their kids, and they're teenagers now, and he was just talking about how wonderful. He's like, I don't know what I've done to deserve kids this good. And I'm like, well, you're good, man. Like you're a good person. You're a good dad. You're a good husband. What do you mean you don't understand why your kids are good? And then through our conversation getting deeper, I realized that when he's worried about his kids, it's the child version of him steering that ship. And we talked about, how his dad was an alcoholic. And I said, well, you're worried about your boys going out and drinking because that's what you knew, right? Like that's what was normal to you. That was what was taught to you. That was what was instilled in you, is that alcohol is a thing that people use to cope with, and that they're going to abuse it in some manner. And that's a fear that you have that your kids are going to do, because when you were a kid, that's what was done to you. And he said, yeah. He said, man, but my dad stopped. He stopped drinking. He got right. He did really good. And what's crazy is he was sponsoring people that had problems that other people wouldn't sponsor. He was that guy, right? The ones that couldn't be sponsored would be sponsored by my dad. He said, so, I don't know why I still feel that way. And I wrote down here, and as someone that has been in and around alcoholism or an addiction to drugs or any kind of addiction at all, what I see happening is most addicts or people that cause trauma in their families' lives or others' lives, they do get right a lot of times, right? And kudos to them. That's amazing. And then a lot of them do. They become sponsors for others, right? They go talk at meetings, or they go to jails, or they do all of this different stuff. And that is amazing. But what I don't think gets talked about as enough is for us, for the other side of it, you stopped, and we 100% love that, and we appreciate that, and it means so much to us. But you didn't fix the pieces that you broke in the relationships that are closest to you. You're sponsoring other addicts when you're not sponsoring the remnants of the addict, right? So I told him, I said, did your dad sponsor you? And he was like, this look, right? And this guy's, he's older than me. Like he's got way more wisdom than I do. I said, because if he didn't sponsor you, you just know that it was a bad thing that he stopped doing. You don't understand why he did it, right? He didn't talk to you about the ugliness of it, or the skeletons in his closet, or the things that we don't like to talk about. We definitely don't want to talk to our kids about it, right? We don't want to talk to our closest friends about, maybe something that happened to him as a boy that led him to drinking and that he used it as a coping mechanism. But like, what would it look like if we did? What would it look like if our parents did talk to us that way, or if your friends did talk to you that way, or your church talked that way? What if that dad sponsored the son before he sponsored other people with addiction? What would the little boy that's steering the man's ship do in those instances? I think it would be a different result because when I looked at him, and this guy's, again, he's several years older than I am, and I said, did he sponsor you? It was almost like I was looking at the little boy. And he was like, no, he didn't. And man, that makes so much sense that I'm worried about that. But I also struggled in my times with making mistakes. And I said, cool, you should probably sponsor your kids, right? He's got a set of older kids. He's got a set of younger kids. I said, well, what would that look like? How much power would there be in if you were talking about the things that you screwed up on, not just the fact that you don't do them? Like, what if you sit down and you told them the ugly truths behind it? That, hey, I grew up this way. This was my normal. This is what I felt. This is what it looked like. It was ugly. It was sad. It was mean. And then it led me to doing this, right? Because I never got the sponsorship as a child to deal with it. So the child steered the ship and led me in the exact same direction that I came from, because that's what he knew. I want to break that chain. I want to break that mold. And to do that, we got to get real. We got to get real with the people around us. We got to get real with our kids, because you can teach them how to balance a checkbook. You can teach them how to go to work. You can teach them how to fold their clothes. But if you can't teach them how to do life, they're going to do it their way. And the only way they're going to do it is picking up on everything that you do and how you handle it. So if you're drinking to get away from work, or drinking to get away from your spouse, if you're smoking weed on the back porch and you don't think that they know what you're doing, you are wrong. They are very hyper observant. That is what they do. They are sponges. They are the biggest sponge you'll ever be around are children, right? They want to pick up everything they can off of every situation because they don't know. Life hasn't happened for them yet. So you're the life that's happening for them. So do you sit down and do you talk to them? Granted, I'm not saying if you have a 5-year-old child to go tell them about your alcohol addiction, but at some point you need to be able to have adult conversations with your kids, right? Because your kids are going to be adults. And do you want the kid to be the adult, or do you want the adult to be the adult? That's on us. But we have so much more power than that, right? For me, my parents were divorced, and like I told my friend yesterday, he'd been divorced and has a second marriage, and he was like, he said, my first marriage, I was cheating on her within the first 6 months. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And I said, does your kids know about that? Like your first set of kids, your oldest kids? And he said, no. And I said, man, you should tell them. I said, there's power in that. They know who you are today, right? They know you're a loving dad, you're a caring dad, you're a great human being. They really look up to you. I don't think that's going to change their mindset. And that's the fear, right? The fear is like, if I get real with someone, it could change the way that they feel or they think about me. If they do, they're not supposed to be in your life anyway, right? But how powerful is it if you went and you talked about that, and then your first marriage, it fell apart, like things went astray. I think ultimately at the end of it, like the wife was the bigger issue in the end, and it led to divorce. So if it's anything like most, like we pick one side of whichever parent did the bad thing that led to the actual divorce, and that's what we stick with. I said, so what would it look like if you went to your kids and you sat down and you said, hey, I want to talk to you about some uncomfortable things that happened when you were this big, right? And you probably don't even remember it. But I cheated on your mom. I cheated on your mom the first 6 months we were together. And then keep going down that path of your wrongdoings, because what we do most of the time is the parent that we're closest to, or this guy, for example, is like the staple in his kid's life. And anytime they talk about their mother or the relationship before the divorce, it's what the mom did or what the dad did, whoever the aggressor or the bad person is during the divorce. But I'm here to tell you, there's two sides to each coin, right? Me and Shelby have been through things, and I have done things, and she has done things that neither one of us are proud of. And at some point, we will probably be sitting here together telling you about them, because our mess can be our message, because we're happy as hell right now. We are doing great. We communicate well together. We love each other more now than we've ever loved each other. And that's through the pain and the trauma. It's not through a perfect relationship. If anything, the better financially we got, the worse we got in our relationship for a long time. And it made no freaking sense. So I said, sit down and you tell your kids, like, hey, I did this and I did this and I did this. And granted, what happened in the end still happened in the end, right? My relationship with my parents, the exact same way, right? Like at the end of the day, like my mom left. But my dad's got a whole story of things that he probably screwed up throughout his entire life. When we talk to you as your children about your life and your relationship, whether it worked or it didn't work, and even if it is still working, 100% talk about it. I want to learn from you, right? So I don't want to know that mom did this, or like in this other guy's instance, like the wife did this. If he goes and he has these conversations with his adult children, he's going to be speaking to the child version of them as their father. Maybe it's going to allow some grace to their mother. Maybe it's going to allow them to heal a wound from when they were a child that they didn't even realize that they had, because they didn't realize that part of them was being steered by the younger version of them. There's so much power in our trauma. There's so much power in our words. And I think it's so cool that once you start opening up about it, it's not nearly as scary or demeaning as most people would think, right? Like you're like, oh man, I don't want people to know this about me. Like, why? They know who you are today. Tell them about the person that got you there. Tell them about the people that wronged you, that made you who you are today. Tell them about all the shit that developed you into the person that you are today, because clearly they love and respect you today. And I don't think that changes. And again, if it does change, it was a false relationship anyway, and be gone with it. So I say all that to say that's faith. That's for me, that's my faith, right? I love church. I think church is great. I think going to it's wonderful. But when people say like our job is to be like Jesus, right? Jesus was a perfect human, and he had no sins, made no errors. He was perfect. So, when you hear that, most people say, okay, I'm supposed to strive for greatness or perfection, right? Be like Jesus. I don't think that's what that means. I think being like Jesus means finding a bunch of screwed up people, messy people, people that were possessed by demons or murderers or tax collectors, not good people that you normally would just kind of be like, oh, let's stay away from them, right? Those are the people that he brought into his circle, right? And through their trauma, through their stories, through their possessions or their murders, they were able to connect with hundreds of thousands and millions of people, right? And their mess became the message that brought salvation to so many. Like for me, that is being like Jesus. Being like Jesus is talking about the uncomfortable things that bring people to the light, right? It's so easy to talk about the light, right? And going to church and singing and reading some scripture and talking about, how great it is. And it's true. I'm not saying that that's not true. But what I'm saying is if we're going to be like Jesus, he didn't build 4 walls and put pews in it. He went out and he found people that were broken, and then he let them tell their stories and let them use their trials and tribulations to connect and build relationships and community with tons of other people. And when Mary came on board, right, and she was known to be like this prostitute and this possessed person and this not just a terrible woman, like that people just used and abused and stayed away from, or like, get away from me. Now all of a sudden she walks in and like she's got her life together, right? Like everybody knew her story. Everybody knew how terrible of a person she was. But then she walks through the same doors that she used to walk through in shame and guilt and trauma and possession as the Mary that we all know from the Bible, a Jesus following disciple. And people go, what happened? Right? If Mary was all of a sudden, if no one knew her, she just went to a new town and kept her story secret and just said like, hi, I'm Mary. I'm a disciple of Jesus. Like, you should listen to the words that I'm going to say. I'm sure it's impacting people, but how much more impactful is it for all the people that knew her story to see who she was today, right? To be in the darkness with her and then see the light. She brought them to light from her darkness. And I think that's being like Jesus. I think that is becoming a true follower, right? We're supposed to follow what he did, not be him. We can't be him. So what's the next thing we can do? We do what he did. We talk about the terrible things. When I get on here and I can't keep my stuff together and I'm emotional and I'm tearing up and I'm talking about Beck's story, and I'm talking about this friend of mine that has been through things, and he told me in that same conversation, we've known each other for years, right? And we never got as deep as we got yesterday in a lot of this conversation. He was like, when I was young, he grew up in the Catholic Church, and he had a priest that was inappropriate with him and messed him up for a very, very long time. And he tucked it away in our storage units as we do and shoved it way down and went on with his life and didn't really tell anybody until, he got older and fell in love. And, obviously his wife knew. And he was telling me, man, I was fine. Everything was cool. And then I turned the TV on one day and I saw that this guy got locked up in a different state for the same stuff that happened to me decades ago. And it shook me. It shook me. It made me depressed. It made me angry. It made me sad. All of a sudden, that boy is steering that ship. I mean, he's steering that ship, and he ain't even holding on to the steering wheel, right? He gets in bed. He's not wanting to get out of bed. He's depressed. He's lonely. All these things, right? All the things that the kids feel when they go through this stuff, and he can't get his life together. And he tells me my wife came in there, and she said, listen, they were at a new church, obviously as adults and married and everything else. I need you to go up and talk to, I think his name was Joe, Father Joe or John, and tell him about this. And he said, man, I looked at her and I said, have you lost your mind? Like, you want me to go back to the place and talk to the person that did this stuff to me when I was a kid and confess to him? And she said, yeah, we trust him. We love him. We've been around him. Yes, that's what I want you to do, because you can't lay in this bed anymore and you can't sulk in this anymore. You need to fix it. So he did what all of us smart husbands do, and he listened to his wife, and he went. And he said, man, I sat down with this guy. I'm getting cold chills even just repeating the story. He said, I sat down with him, and I just started telling him, what happened to me and when it happened. And he said the first thing he looked at me and said was, let's call the cops. Let's call them right now. And that's what that little boy needed to hear, right? What do we want to hear? What would you want to hear as a child that happens to you? Well, if you told your dad or you told your mom or you told a friend or you told somebody else, like, hey, let's call the cops. Let's end this. Let's fix this. Let's get rid of this person. Let's bring this person to light. Let's end it before somebody else gets it. That's what he told him. Let's call the cops. And he said, Tim, in that moment, and he couldn't find the word. I said, you felt free? He said, yes, I felt free. And I said, man, it took you decades for you to finally talk to the little boy that was steering the ship. And when you did, all of a sudden, the waters calmed, right? And the man took back over, and he felt good, and he felt relieved, and he felt like that there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? So through his story of pain and things that we shouldn't go through, there's light. How many people do you think has had that similar thing happen to them, right? Whether it's in a church or in a home or in a family reunion or whatever. How many people? Statistically, it is a ridiculous amount of people. His story and his courage to go back to a similar place, to a similar person that caused this pain in his life and have a conversation with them about it led him to freedom, to feeling free. Now, if he takes that story, which after our conversation yesterday, I think he really will. I actually checked in with him before I did this and was like, hey, without referencing, and he actually said, you can use my name. I don't need to be anonymous. Like, if maybe that will help, I'm choosing to keep it anonymous. I'll let him tell that story. That's his story. But if he gets real and if he is Jesus-like, right? If he's a disciple, he's telling people that story. He's saying, man, I was in the dark. Things happened to me. It was terrible. It shouldn't have happened. But look who and where I am today, and you can be too. Here's how I got there. That is power, right? We can go to church, and we can go to our beds, and we can go to whatever it is that you want to go to, and we can try to pray it away, and it works. Prayer works. I'm not negating that the systemized version of what we have today isn't a great thing, because it is. I do it. I'm 100% behind it. But what I'm saying is there's more to it. Like, why are we here? What is our purpose? What is life? It's the test, right? It's the test before we graduate. And the more people that you know failed the test and where they failed, the more likely you are to pass it, succeed, and graduate into eternity. Use your mess. Use your words. Use the stuff that you don't want to frickin' talk about so that other people can learn how to steer their own ship and let the little boy go, let the little girl go, right? Let them just be kids, right? That stuff never leaves. The kids, the playing, the memories, the laser tag or the kick the can or manhunt, like that's the stuff the kid's supposed to hold on to and remember, not what happened when they were this age or who did what to them or the stuff they saw or had to deal with. Those things are for the adults. So as the adult now, you have an opportunity to still talk to. You're the same person, right? You just got a little grayer, maybe a little older, maybe a little fatter. You still have the opportunity to talk to that kid, right? Because you are that kid. It never goes away. How do you want to reflect that? Like, hey, you're safe. Like, I want to tell little Timmy, you're safe. You went through this. Your mommy left. Like, you did that. But here's all the stuff, man, that led to that. Here's the mindset. Here's the trauma. Here's what she went through. Here's what my dad went through. Here's what he did. Here's what she did. Here's how it got there. So that I can make sure I don't make those same mistakes. Or that if I see something coming, I can recognize it because I learned from it, right? That's our purpose. That is life. That is what we're supposed to be and do. So think through that. Think through all the stuff that you know internally, all the mistakes you've made, the ugly, deep, dark crap. And then think about all the other people, because I promise you're not the only one, right? Like, oh, I cheated on my wife. There's millions of them. Millions of people doing that. You're not unique to this. You're not unique to something happened to you inappropriately as a child. That's millions of people. You're not the first person that got addicted to drugs or became an alcoholic. Don't hide it. Embrace it. Because if you're past that today, then you should be using that to help others. But first, starting with the people closest to you, right? Don't go connect with people that can relate to you. It's much easier, right? It's so much easier for me to talk to people about business than own businesses because they have an understanding of taxes and how to set up LLCs and insurance and workers' compensation and audits and all of this stuff, right? And it's so much easier for me to talk to business owners about business. I'm going to go talk to high schools about business. I'm going to go talk to middle schools about business. I'm going to go talk to my friends like I just did and said, hey man, there's more here. Let me just talk to you about it. And it's so foreign to people in so many ways that, yeah, it'd be much easier for me to just pick up this phone and call all the different people that I know that have successful businesses and be like, hey man, how'd you do in Q2? How'd you do in Q3? And then I say that to some friends and they're like, what the hell's Q2 mean? Well, let me tell you what Q2 means, because through my story, I can maybe tell you something that leads you somewhere else. But also, let's talk about my trauma. Let's talk about how I felt when I was a hyper child, right? I talk to my son about that a lot, right? He's very hyper. He's very go, go, go. He is me made over. On vacation, they had jet skis and all these things that at the resort we were at that you could rent. And he wants to go out, so we do the jet ski pass thing, and I'm taking him out like 2 or 3 times. And when we came back, he's very observant of his surroundings and he wants to know how things work. And we get off the jet ski, and I go walk over, and he just kind of stands there, and he's just watching. And then a couple of look like probably teenagers, maybe early 20s at best, they were working the booth out there on the beach. He starts asking them questions, right? He's never met these people before, but he just goes up and he's just like, hey, what are you doing here? Like, what are you doing there? And he starts asking. And before you know it, like all of a sudden, like people are bringing their paddle boards back in that they've rented and their jet skis. And he's telling them like, come on, right here. And then he'll go out and he'll grab their paddle boards or their longboards and like pull them all the way up on the beach. And he starts just like working for these people, right? So like, he is me. Like that is me. Like I want to know how things work. I want to be a part of it. I want to understand it. I want to do it so that I can know it. And so we have a lot of conversations about how our minds work and the issues. And, I tell him the failures that I've done, even at his age. Like, hey buddy, like when I was your age, I couldn't pay attention still. And I still can in a lot of ways. But here's what helped me, right? I was helping him do some homework last night, and I turned I call them Jesus jams on the speakers, and I had it playing, and my wife comes home, and me and him were sitting there doing math together with this music blaring. But for me, if I've got loud music and I can't hear this freaking chair creaking like it's doing, and it breaks my concentration every time, that helps me. And she came in, and she was like, does music help him like it helps you? And I said, we've been sitting here, and I haven't had to get on him once. She was like, I got to remember that. So like, I'm open with him about it, like, hey, bud, I squirreled out my whole life. Like, here's the things I did that helped, right? Or like, hey, when I got into a situation here, when I was failing in school or when I couldn't figure out the assignment, like, here's what helped me. I failed. I sucked at this, and here's how I got through it. Those are the stories. I don't want my son to think I'm a loser or that I'm not smart or that I can't pay attention or whatever. I don't want him to think that, but I also don't want him to think that I'm not that, because he is that. He is me. So if I only tell him like, oh yeah, son, like we own a business and we're doing good and I know what a P&L is and I know this and I know that and I know this, he's going to grow up and be like, man, what am I? What am I? But like, no, buddy, I'm an idiot. Like, I'm an idiot. I just work really hard and grab that steering wheel and just keep it all contained and steer the ship until I get to where I'm supposed to go. And then I'm going to talk about how scary and screwed up and how I had no freaking clue what I was doing the entire journey to get there. But man, once we hit that bank, I felt accomplished, and we did it. We did it. It was scary. It was fearful, but we did it. So there's power in our words. There's more power in our stories, especially the stories that people don't like talking about, than we know. What would it look like if you went in your church and you said, hey, I want to get up here and I want to speak, and you just started talking about the most gruesome, god-awful things that have happened to you in your life to get you where you are? Hey, I grew up in a broken home. My dad abused me. My mom was an alcoholic. And like, you just started going down this path of all this crazy stuff. Like, people are going to get really uncomfortable really, really fast. Mostly because it relates with something they've been through that they've hidden or that they've tucked away or that they don't like to touch because it hurts a little bit, right? Not because they're like, oh, I can't believe this happened. I've never heard of this happening to somebody. But what would that look like? What would the church look like? What would the group of men or women or friends that you hang out with look like if you started talking about things that are uncomfortable for you to talk about, right? If you're freaking out, but what if you just told them, like, man, I was freaking out when I was steering the ship. And here's why. Like, I have anxiety and I have I'm nervous and I'm fearful that something might go wrong. And they go, man, I never thought that you felt that way. I just thought you were just this badass going through life, just killing everything that you touch. And I'm like, no, I'm internally a mess, but externally I don't allow it to control me. So, and they're like, wow. So now all of a sudden they go, okay, I can do that too, right? I've been through that mess. I've had this happen to me as a child. I've watched my parents go through this, but I've never touched it, right? And it's been holding me back. And that boy's been driving the man, or the girl's been steering the ship for the woman my entire life when I get into this uncomfortable situation. When my mom and dad split up, we talked about, our relationship with my mother it's still like, I haven't talked to her in quite a while. I still love her. She's still my mom. And if she called, I'd answer the phone. And I feel like if I called, she'd answer the phone. It's just the relationship that we have, right? It's always been this, we'll talk, and then a month or a week or 6 months goes by and we don't talk. And I remember I was telling my buddy about this yesterday. I said, man, I remember I was installing, I was young, I was in my early 20s, and I struggled with it big time, right? Nobody taught me how to deal with this shit. No one taught me, like, when your mom leaves and you don't have a relationship, all of a sudden, like, here's what you do. So I'm winging it. I'm steering the ship, and it's all over the damn place. So I'm in this guy's house, and I'm putting a dishwasher in for him. And he was actually a pastor at a church. And I always do small talk, right? I'm a multitasker, ADD. I can read books and fix a car at the same time, whatever. So I'm talking to him, and for whatever reason, I just felt called to tell him about my life a little bit. Like, it was something that was on my mind that I was struggling with. And I told him, like, yeah, my mom and dad split up, like, blah, 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 kind of this whole story. And I was like, but the thing that bothers me the most is, like, I'll talk to my mom on the phone. And again, this is not a slam to her, right? Like, we've all got our own stuff. And no doubt there are a million things that have happened in her life that led her to be the person that she is today. And it doesn't make her a bad person. It just makes her a person. So this is not a slam to her. But I would say, like, I talked to my mom, and, I would tell her, like, hey, call me tomorrow, when I get out of school. As a young, when I was 12 was when she left. And she would be like, okay, baby, I love you, the full, normal thing. And I'm like, all right, bye, hang up, go home the next day. And, I'm not sitting by the phone, like, just like waiting for the phone to ring. But in my mind, I'm waiting for my mother to call me, right? I'm waiting for her to want to be a part of my life, even though she's not in my home anymore. And that day goes and it passes, and the next day goes and it passes, and then a week goes and it passes, and like all of a sudden I'm sad, I'm pissed off, I feel abandoned, I feel all of these things. And it's a cycle, right? This loop, and then like all of a sudden, like 2 or 3 weeks later, like my phone ringing, it's my mom, and I'm like, oh hey, how are you? And I'm latching on to this as much as I possibly can. And then I tell her, like, all right, well, call me tomorrow. And she was like, all right, I love you, bye. Hang up. Same damn thing happens. So I'm telling this guy in his kitchen about it, and, he's just letting me vent, and it's got to be a weird situation for him because you got this guy you hired to put your dishwasher in, like, all of a sudden telling you all this crazy stuff. But he was an amazing human. And what was cool is, he didn't say, like, hold on, let me go get my Bible, or let me bust out this scripture, let me bust out this, right? He gave me the human answer that I needed in that moment, right? Because sometimes the human answer will lead you to the faith, or it will lead you to the scripture that you need to see after that. But like you have to understand it before you read it, or you're just reading words that doesn't make any sense in your human life. So he looks at me and he goes, hey, he said, so I'm listening to you, and here's something that I'm noticing. Why are you setting yourself up for failure? And I was like, I'm a victim right now. Like, my mother doesn't call me. Like, what do you mean? Why am I setting myself up for failure? And And he says, well, when you hang up the phone with her, why do you keep telling her to call you tomorrow? You know she's not going to call you, right? And I'm like, I'm hoping she does. He was like, yeah, but she doesn't. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, try this. Call me sometime, or I'll talk to you later. And it sounded so stupid at the time, right? And I'm like, no. She needs to call me. Like, she needs to. You're not going to change her. You're not going to change other people. You can only change you. You can only change the way that you think, the way you talk, the way that you feel. So that's what I did. I went home, and the next time she called me, I was very intentional about getting off the phone and me saying, hey, I love you. Call me later, or I'll talk to you later. And it changed everything. Like, it changed everything. I wasn't like, the next day I wasn't pissed or sad that she didn't call, because I didn't give her that unrealistic expectation that she was going to call tomorrow, knowing damn good and well that she's not. And it fixed something inside of me, right? It fixed something. But if I hadn't went and randomly opened up to this strange man that hired me to install his appliance, I never would have gotten that little piece of advice that led me to a lighter life, a better life, a life where I could understand that not all things are going to work out the way you want them to, or go the way that you think they should go. Even if you're not in the wrong, you don't have to be the victim. You can use one little tweak, right? Call me later. Call me tomorrow. Call me later. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll talk to you later. It's this big, but it makes this big of a freaking impact. And it changed everything. So what if we kept down that path, right? Like, what if we kept down that path? And how cool is it that the pastor of a church didn't try to just say, like, go read John. Like, I'm just going to put it back on God. Like, go read John. Because I feel like God a lot of times looks at us and he's like, guys, like, what are you doing? Yes, you have this book. Yes, you have these lessons. Yes, you have this, but you also have the brotherhood and the sisterhood and life. You have all of these things that I've given you, the tools. I've given you therapists. I've given you psychologists. I've given you doctors, books, podcasts. I've given you music. I've given you all of this stuff. It's not always go read John. Sometimes it's Jesus was a human. He came here to be human. He could have just done everything from there and magically fixed it all, right? You could have prayed to him and just be like, Lord, please take this away from me. And it goes away. And that does happen. So then why did Jesus get sent down to earth, right? Like, why was he here? Why did he become a human? He could have taken his magic wand and been like, pow, like, you're healed, and nobody knows Mary's story and nobody knows Peter's story, and like nobody knows this, but he didn't. He said, hey, all you screwed up people surround me. I'm going to let everybody know I'm the Son of God. They're going to not believe me. At the end of the day, they're going to crucify me and make me a miserable human. But I'm still going to bring all of you with all of the crap that you carry and surround you. So not only am I coming out and telling everybody like I'm the Son of God and people are going to freak out and the Romans are going to do all kinds of crazy stuff, but I'm going to put people that no one should trust or believe around me while I'm doing it. So how are you? What are you going? You're going to be like Jesus. Prove it. Prove it. Use your story, use your trauma, use your words, and grab some people that aren't the best, right? Don't go get everybody that's your church buddies that don't have these conversations. And again, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen at churches. I'm just saying from the outside looking in a lot of cases, we go to church on Sunday, we sing some songs, we read some scripture, we go home, and then we live that miserable crap that's still controlling us, right? The boy takes over the man again. And again and again. And then we start drinking, or we start watching porn, or we start doing all this stuff. And it's like, man, I can't wait to go to church on Sunday so I can feel like the little boy is safe. Well, stop trying to make him feel safe and save him. Save him. Save her. Go get your group and start having uncomfortable conversations. Start having conversations at your church or in your groups or at your Bible study about the stuff that you don't want people to know, because you're going to probably find that warm, fuzzy, I got goosebumps, Holy Spirit feeling tenfold when you're doing that. Why most people, and especially a lot of like early Christians or early people that are going into their faith, the music at church is like the first thing that gets them, right? Like, they're like, oh man, I had this like whole body like thing happen while the music was on level 6,000 and people are singing. Why do you think that is? Like, think about that for a second. What is most musicians doing in their music, right? What are they talking about? Why do so many people relate with even Eminem? Why do people relate to all of these different musicians and things? NF is a wonderful, wonderful artist that people relate to a lot. So ask yourself, why do they all, most people that go there, I've had several people that I know that went to church for the first time and like, man, they're like, that music hit and I just started crying. I'm like, yeah, weird. They're telling stories, uncomfortable truths of their lives that are so many others, and people are relating to it, right? And in that nasty story or nasty thing that they're singing about, they're also bringing light to it through God. And all of a sudden, you connect and you relate with the ugliness or the part that you don't want to talk about, and then you feel great about it, right? You're saving the little boy or the little girl in that moment. And that's why it's such a big impact. That's why they do it. Why do we go to church, and why does Jesus tell us, like, use music to worship me? Like, because there's stories. The only way you have music is to tell stories. Like, otherwise, you've just got, like, nothing. Like, the people like the music because of what it's saying. So think about that. Next time you go to church and they're blasting something or blasting some Brandon Lake or some Jelly Roll is literally what we're supposed to be. He's huge right now, right? Like, everybody loves him. He's winning stuff. He's singing about God, and this is not normal for most of the genre that he's in. Why? Because he's merry. He is merry through and through. He's got tattoos all over him. He's trashy. He's been through some stuff. He's done some stuff. And he'll still tell you, like, hey, yeah, I'm smoking weed and I'm still drinking. And I'm a flawed human. I'm not hiding from it. I'm not going and being like, oh, cameras are on. Like, everybody make sure you don't tell them that we drank last night. He's saying, like, yeah, man, I still screw up. Even today, knowing what I know and doing what I do, I still screw up. And people go, me too. Me too, man. I do the same thing, but I can still find what I'm looking for, right? I can still have a good life. I can still live, and I can still pass the test and graduate. I don't have to just tuck it all down, because, man, when we tuck it all down, eventually it fills us up. And once it fills us up, we lose control, right? When everybody else on the boat starts freaking out, that's when you really freak out. That's when you really lose control. So I thought this was really cool. It's something that's really been on my heart lately. Sponsor your victims as much as you sponsor the people that have the same problems or the same addictions as you, right? Sponsor your kids for the same things that you needed to be sponsored for when you were young. Sponsor your friends for the things that you probably don't want them to know, or spend time talking about business, even if they're like, buddy, I don't know what any of this stuff is. That's fine. Let me talk to you about it, right? I want to go there. I want to do these things. I want to talk about uncomfortable things. And then I want you to imagine if all of a sudden you're sitting in a group setting and you hear one of your closest friends or someone that you look up to or that you love or that you've been around for a very long time say something that strikes you right in one of those little boxes that you stuff something in. And you go, holy shit, me too. You mean you're happy, man? Like you're successful, or you're happy, or you've got such a good marriage, and like your kids, like there's people that you look up to, right? Imagine if the conversations that you could have, if all of a sudden the person you look up to or that you think's wonderful or who you want to be has the exact same little boy inside of them, or little girl but they took back over control of their ship, right? But they can help you. Like all of a sudden we start having these conversations and real relationships happen, deep relationships that are meaningful. And then all of a sudden you've got 12 people that are running around saying like, hey, I'm a murderer. Like, hey, I was a prostitute. Hey, I was this. Hey, I was that. And then it's like, oh crap. Like me too. Or like, oh, I did this too. Or like, oh, I stepped out on my wife. Like me too. Like the connection. and then the growth that comes from that. Like, what does that look like? What does that look like if you had a church full of people where everybody's just talking about like all this crazy stuff, right? I think that's what we're supposed to do. I don't think we're supposed to just keep doing it so we have stories to tell, but I do think that through our past and through our garbage brings light, not only to yourself, because you're able to get that box out, open it up, and throw that shit away and take back over and start steering your own ship again. Take control of your ship. Let the little boy or the little girl be the little boy or little girl. Stop letting them try to control the man or the woman, because they don't have a damn clue what they're doing and they're scared to death. So that was the message for this week. I know it's a little different than the normal, but in most things, personalities and personal lives and business should be one of the same, right? You should be the same individual at work as you are at home, and vice versa. And I think if we can all strive to move there and get there, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the conversations that we're having here in my office, and sometimes you got to shake things up, or you got to hear somebody tell you like it's okay to not be okay. That's 100% okay. There was actually a song yesterday that I was listening to. I think it was either NF or Force Frank, and it said, man, how did they word that? It was basically like, it's okay if it's good. It's okay if it's good. Just because it's good doesn't mean that it's bad. So just keep that in mind. Think back through your life, maybe even journal or jot down, just write, where is the child version of me controlling the adult? And just jot down, maybe there's some things that if something triggers you and just pisses you off, or something scares you, or something makes you really just go in and lay down in your bed like my friend and just deflate. If the fear, right? That little boy took over 100%, but the man saved him. The man went and had a conversation that the little boy never could, and he saved him. Now the little boy could be the little boy, and the man is steering the freaking ship. So I love you guys. I appreciate you. Don't forget that anything is possible when you take off the blinders, and that means more and more each week. The blinders can be a multitude of things. It's not just the blinders of opportunities, the blinders of everything. Everything that could be good in your life is there and available to you if you choose to see it. So thank you. We'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the CrumeCast podcast. We're excited to continue to share our story with you. Our new guests that are coming on have a lot more to tell. You've got a lot more to learn. So we really hope that you keep tuning in, and we will see you next time. Have a blessed day.